tonight as Russia steps up its attack on Ukraine. A major humanitarian appeal is launched as 1 million people flee the violence. Ukrainians in Scotland continue to push for an end to the conflict.
Every second that I do something that's not this, I feel like I'm betraying my family, I'm betraying my people.
Also making the headlines as the Scottish Government publishes its controversial gender recognition reform bill. People affected by similar legislation in Ireland share their experiences.
North Lanarkshire Council bans the rapist David Goodwillie from Broadwood Stadium.
And the actor Alan Cumming on portraying an imposter that fooled a Scottish school into believing he was a teenager.
I got all the tapes of his interviews and practiced them like a drag queen, lip syncing.
I'm Gordon Cree in Edinburgh.
And I'm Sophie Wallace in Glasgow. This is the STV News at 6. Good evening. I barely sleep and I barely eat. 1 week on, a Ukrainian living in Scotland has described the pain of watching the Russian invasion of her country while her relatives attempt to escape the violence.
The leaders of Scotland's political parties have urged the public to donate to an appeal in support of the people of Ukraine. The First Minister is also looking at what action ministers can take against those with links to the Russian regime. Our political correspondent Ewan Petrie reports.
In Kyiv, several large explosions lit up the night sky. 1 week after the start of the invasion, more than 1 million people are now believed to have fled the country. Ukrainians here continue to push for an end to the violence. Many still have family caught up in the conflict. Among them Xenia, who wanted her sister and niece to escape by train, but instead they chose to drive.
I see that the explosions rocked Kiev's central station, and I know that central station, I've been on it so many times. And this is where my niece was supposed to be, had I got it my way. And how would I ever live with myself? I can't describe this feeling, and I barely sleep and I barely eat, and my friends are starting to harass me and just shouting at me to take a break, but I can't. Every second that I do something that's not this, I feel like I'm betraying my family, I'm betraying my people. I'm not doing enough. And I'm not doing enough because the war is still going.
Inside the Parliament, political differences were laid aside for the launch of the Disasters Emergency Committee appeal. It brings together the leading aid agencies responding on the ground.
Giving money works best. It can be flexible, it can get to people quickly, and it can meet their needs best. Also, with the UK aid match, for every pound raised in the DEC up to 20 million, that will be matched, which will essentially double the resources going to people.
Question number 1, I call Douglas Ross.
Earlier, there was another show of solidarity with the people of Ukraine at First Minister's questions.
And while we debate in this chamber, we cannot forget that the people of Ukraine continue to put up the most heroic defence of their country in the face of Russia's appalling actions.
Can I also, on behalf, I'm sure, of all of us in this chamber and across the country, express my horror at the scenes we have watched unfold in Ukraine as a result of Putin's aggression and illegal invasion over this past week.
We unequivocally stand in solidarity with the people of Ukraine in defence of democracy, of human rights and their peace and freedom.
The First Minister is urging businesses here to cut all links with Russia and is seeking advice on the toughest action the Scottish Government can take against those connected to Vladimir Putin's regime. Ewan Petrie, STV News.
Well, as the conflict on the ground in Ukraine intensifies, so too has the information war, with state-sponsored Russian media reporting a very different narrative of the invasion.
One woman, originally from Moscow but living in Kyiv, has spoken to STV News after becoming stuck in Edinburgh. She says it's a struggle to convince family and friends in Russia about what's really going on, as Laura Alderman reports.
For everybody.
When Natalie flew from Kyiv to Edinburgh to see her partner Alistair in January, she never imagined she might not have a home to return to. Russian-born but a resident of the Ukrainian capital for 20 years, she now watches Putin's invasion unfold in horror and disbelief.
I love Ukraine, I love Kyiv, this is my favorite city, and I cannot imagine what it will be bombed like you said. This TV tower was bombed, it's not so far from my house.
Feeling lucky to be safe but also helpless, she prays for her friends still in Kyiv every day.
I am proud of Ukrainian people and I am proud of Ukraine like country, and I am proud of everybody who now in Ukraine because they stay in this situation and they continue to work for everything what we will be free.
This was the moment Russia Today, the state-backed news channel, was taken off the air across Europe.
From the very moment Putin began his invasion, I was also very clear that he must not be allowed to exploit our open and free media to spread poisonous propaganda into British homes.
But inside Russia, a very different story is being told. Kremlin-controlled media blames Ukraine for the bombings and accuses them of using civilians as human shields. Natalie has tried to dispel this narrative to friends and family back in Russia, with no luck.
They think what Russian army coming to make us free. I couldn't understand, I not understand right now from what free we was free every time.
Natalie's visitor visa is due to expire soon, but right now that's not on her mind. She knows the risks of speaking out against Putin, but feels it's her duty to do so.
Stop this war right now, today, maybe these hours, because it can be too late. It's not worth the life of millions of people. And
the Scottish Government is proposing to change the law to make it quicker and easier for people to change their legally recognised gender.
The Gender Recognition Reform Act aims to reduce the time it takes to change a birth certificate from 2 years to 6 months, and to reduce the minimum age to do so from 18 to 16. But some opponents see it as an attack on women's rights. Here's our political editor, Colin Mackay.
The debate over reforming gender recognition has been at times bitter and divisive. Usually new legislation comes with a parliamentary debate. Today it came with a ministerial statement and a warning.
There is a great deal of interest in the work of the Parliament on this issue, and as always it is important that we set the correct tone in our debate.
The Gender Recognition Reform Bill proposes updating existing legislation, cutting the time it takes to legally change gender from 2 years to 6 months, and removing the need for medical evidence.
At the moment, a trans man or a trans woman has to provide a psychiatric diagnosis, quite intrusive and detailed medical evidence reports, and also can't apply to have their birth certificate updated until they've been permanently living as a man or a woman for 2 years.
The government has not made a case for reform. It hasn't explained in any way why we should remove safeguarding in order to convey a special privilege to people who don't need it.
Trans people in Scotland risk inequality, harassment and abuse simply for living their lives.
Ministers also plan to cut the age limit from 18 to 16 and expect the number of applications to increase from around 30 to up to 300 a year. But the biggest concerns from women's groups are that it will diminish their rights and remove the protection of some women-only spaces.
The proposals as they stand do not protect women's rights. They do not offer enough protection for women's safety. The concerns of women are legitimate.
If the policy of self-ID is made law, how will the government ensure that single-sex spaces and services for the purposes of upholding dignity and privacy, for example hospital wards, therapy groups, refuges and accommodation, are available to women and girls who need them?
As a feminist and as a mum of a daughter, I get frustrated sometimes that we're not making the progress for women's equality that we need to make. And, but that's not the fault of the trans community. We've got work to do to make sure that we can progress women's equality.
This will continue to be a difficult debate, but there's a clear majority in the Parliament for change, with the support of the Lib Dems, Greens and Labour, although some SNP MSPs are expected to rebel when it comes to the vote. But there could also still be legal challenges from women's groups. Colin Mackay, STV News.
Well, this bill proposes moving to a model of self-declaration like the one currently used in Ireland. Trans people living there have been able to self-declare their gender since 2015. Polly Bartlett has been to Dublin to find out how it's been working there.
My name is Noah Halpin. I am a transgender man.
Noah Halpin always knew he was different.
I just wasn't like the other young toddler girls that I knew. I remember seeing a documentary about a young trans person when I was 15, and this kind of light bulb went off in my head and I said, oh my God, there's a word for it. There's other people like me and that's transgender.
Noah didn't immediately come out, fearing a negative reaction from friends and family, but he's so glad he did.
People have told me that I'm completely different in terms of just how happy I am.
It challenges everything you think you know about yourself or everything you know about your child.
Lynn's daughter Alice came out as transgender when she was 16. This picture shows her signing for a gender recognition certificate. That means her passport and birth certificate are now in the correct name and gender.
It's just one thing that makes it easier. And it made it easier for other people, my mother, for my siblings, that this is, this is really real. This isn't some made-up thing, that I don't understand. But the fact that she's recognised by the state makes us really proud.
Transgender rights evolved dramatically here in 2015, when the country became one of only 4 in the world to allow people to legally change their gender by self-declaration. Legal experts say it has reduced incidents of discrimination and transphobia.
When the law says, no, you are who you are, suddenly you have a massive ballast, an arsenal at your back to support you. And so that then can help reduce those kinds of discriminations, because it's suddenly no longer officially okay to do that anymore,
But it's not without its challenges. The demand for medical transition has increased dramatically and waiting lists are over 5 years long.
I think that's what it comes down to at the end of the day, quality of life. So did gender recognition give a better quality of life in Ireland? It didn't. It just provided a validation in legislation.
While only a small number of people here have changed their gender by self-declaration, the effect on the trans community is vast.
It makes life much easier rather than having to kind of go in front of somebody, prove that you are the gender you say you are, because that's quite a difficult thing to do when all you want to do is just get on with your life.
Polly Bartlett, STV News, Dublin.
The owners of Broadwood Stadium have banned the rapist footballer David Goodwillie from entering the ground after his re-signing by Clyde. North Lanarkshire Council has also told the club its lease on the stadium won't be renewed when it expires next summer. Well, Vanessa Taff is at Broadwood for us now. Vanessa.
Well, after the backlash over his return to Clyde FC on loan this afternoon, Clyde ladies' side said that their manager was resigning and that they no longer wished to play for the side. Now tonight, North Lanarkshire Council have said that David Goodwillie will no longer be permitted inside these doors. In a statement, they've also outlined that should Mr Goodwillie enter the stadium, they will consider the contract to have been breached and they will take immediate steps to terminate it. In addition to that, they've also informed Clyde FC that they intend not to renew the lease with the club when the contract for use of Broadwood Stadium here expires in May 2023. Now, they've also raised the fact that Goodwillie and Clyde FC haven't acknowledged his actions. You'll remember he was found by a civil court to have raped a woman in 2017. Now, Goodwillie played here for around 5 years after that, and the council were keen to stress that they were not in charge of the venue at that time. STV News have reached out to Clyde FC, but they've yet to respond.
All right, Vanessa in Cumbernauld, many thanks for that update.
Campaigners are gathering outside the Scottish Parliament tonight for a memorial protest a year on from the murder of Sarah Everard.
The brutal attack at the hands of a serving Metropolitan Police officer sparked outrage about women's safety and calls for a culture change. Kay Nicholson is at Holyrood for us now.
Yes, the details of Sarah Everard's kidnap, rape and murder were beyond harrowing, and they led to widespread anger, shock and sadness. That anger prompted calls for more to be done to protect women on the streets and make them feel safer. A year on though, here tonight, people are saying not enough has been done.
As a woman, when someone harasses you, it can be really such a shameful experience, and sharing that amongst women to normalise it. And you know that you're not the problem, the issue is the societal issue, and the men who are doing it to you, it's not about you.
Elected representatives need to lead by example, and that's why the protest is here today, so people can come and hear our anger, hear our demands for change and our commitment to change, and take that forward in their role as MSPs.
I don't understand why protecting people is potentially controversial. So working together on these solutions, understanding that these solutions are so complex because the issue is complex, and you can't put a sticking plaster on this. We need to completely root out misogyny.
So these campaigners want to see all sorts to root out that misogyny. They're talking about tackling justice, improving education and also support for survivors. You'll see the talks are ongoing behind me, there's various people speaking tonight, but they are all united here in saying that more needs to be done to protect women's safety. They're also all reflecting on the many, many lives, not just Sarah's, who've been cut short by gender violence.
Indeed, Kay at the Scottish Parliament, thank you. Paisley Abbey has been transformed as part of a project celebrating culture and creativity across the UK. The Unboxed event, which is running all week, uses animation and music to tell the story of our history, from the Big Bang right up to the present day. Pupils from a local school have also written poetry from the show, as Susan Ripple reports.
There's so much to take in. It's almost overwhelming. This spectacular show is the first in a series of creative events taking place across the UK over the next year.
From star to tree, thought to phone to bright screen.
And poems by school pupils in Paisley are a big part of the soundtrack.
It's very exciting to see yourself projected on something, and then everyone's going to see all the hard work you've done as you're saying the poem.
It's even better and bigger than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was just going to be called something little, but it was so fun.
When we saw it, we were just like, wow.
I'm really moved, actually. It's a beautiful, beautiful piece of work about humanity and togetherness and everything we kind of are thinking at the moment, and it's visually absolutely stunning. So I hope everyone comes down and has a look and enjoys it.
The show will be on here in Paisley until the 6th of March, before then heading off to the next destination.
And what a canvas the team has had for the first immersive show. Susan Ripple, STV News, Paisley.
All right, time for the sport now. Here's Rahman.
Get your fill of the action. STV Sport, sponsored by Papa John's Pizza.
Good evening. Ukraine have requested this month's World Cup playoff match against Scotland to be postponed. Steve Clarke's side are scheduled to host the Ukrainians at Hampden in 3 weeks' time, but the fixture has been thrown into doubt following Russia's invasion of the country. Reuters news agency are reporting the Ukrainian FA have asked FIFA and UEFA for the game to be delayed. Celtic manager Ange Postecoglou says the Old Firm derby in Australia will help grow the game in Scotland. Giovanni van Bronckhorst has also given his backing to the Sydney Super Cup. But as Ronnie Charters now reports, the backlash from supporters continues.
The messages from the terraces are clear. The prospect of an Old Firm friendly down under, widely condemned by both sets of supporters. Giovanni van Bronckhorst, though, says it's a huge opportunity for Rangers, with Celtic boss Ange Postecoglou saying it's a chance to grow the game.
We are an all-inclusive church, mate, and we should welcome from far and wide, which we do, and I think taking the team to that side of the world, I think is positive for us, but also, like I said, Scottish football, because people know what I'm like. I'm not going to go there and treat it as a friendly. We're going to go there and play a couple of games, and I want them to see us playing fantastic football and everyone talking about our football club.
Before last night's match, both Celtic and St Mirren came together to send a strong message over Russia's invasion of Ukraine. After a goalless first half, Celtic struck twice after the break through Cameron Carter-Vickers and Callum McGregor. For St Mirren, they dropped to 9th, but just 4 points off Livingston in 4th.
There's the perception that somebody's having an unbelievable season or having an awful season. There's, as you say, there's 3-4 points between the whole thing, and it's up to us now the next 4 games to try and get at least 2 wins out of the next 4, and then it'll put us right back in the mix again.
Meanwhile, Rangers got their first away league win in 4 with a 1-0 victory over St Johnstone. The goal coming early through Glenn Kamara to keep up the pace with their title rivals.
We tried to score the goals. I don't think we gave any chances away throughout the whole game, which I'm very pleased of. But this game was more about fighting and making the duels, because playing football in this pitch was really hard.
Next up for Rangers is the visit of Aberdeen on Saturday, before Celtic head to Livingston on Sunday. Ronnie Charters, STV News.
Well, ahead of Celtic's trip to Livingston, David Martindale believes the league leaders will have a point to prove after they lost at Almondvale earlier in the season. Livy moved up to 4th in the table after their 2-1 win over Dundee United last night.
But I think there's probably a wee bit of needle in there tying the respect that the Celtic players are coming here trying to rectify the last result, and I do believe they're top class international footballers and they'll have a point to prove. But again, we'll be going out there with a point to prove as well, so it should be a good encounter. Hopefully we can get something from the game.
Motherwell manager Graham Alexander says their season is in danger of petering out after his side dropped out of the top 6 following their defeat to Ross County. The only goal of the game came from the penalty spot early in the first half after Jake Carroll was penalised. Joseph Hungbo scored from 12 yards. The Steelmen are now in 7th place. And some sad news to end the sport tonight. Former Celtic caretaker manager Frank Connor has died at the age of 86. That is all the sport for me tonight, folks. I'll see you again tomorrow.
Get your fill of the action. STV Sport, sponsored by Papa John's Pizza.
Now, will the next few days bring us rain or sun? Well, I know one man who should be able to tell us. Here's Sean.
Today's outlook is becoming more and more unsettled. TUI Blue Hotels sponsor STV Weather.
Now, as we head into the weekend, the high pressure comes back to the rescue, so a lot of dry and fine weather for many of us. The further west you are, the better, because little weather front that's brought us the cloud and outbreaks of rain is going to be stuck across eastern parts during tomorrow and even on Saturday and into the early part of Sunday. It's still in the east, giving us cloud and outbreaks of rain. So expect around the likes of Stirling, Falkirk, Clickmannanshire, West Lothian and parts of Lanarkshire we'll tend to see that weather front coming and going, giving us still further outbreaks of rain through tonight, tomorrow and even into Saturday. Best of any clearer spells tonight in the west, and expect parts of the Highlands, maybe Ayrshire, temperatures down to about 2 or 3 degrees Celsius, certainly a little bit chillier in the west compared to central and eastern parts where we hang on to the cloud and the outbreaks of rain. So the best of the sunny spells tomorrow across the Highlands, also much of Argyll as well, but there will be some scattered showers here. A little bit of brightness perhaps coming through for Ayrshire as well, but for many central eastern areas, again, we still hang on to the cloud, the outbreaks of rain, temperatures about 5 or 6 degrees. So where we've got that rain, Falkirk, Falkirk, Fife, West Lothian. It will feel quite chilly, with temperatures just about 5 or 6 degrees during the afternoon. Then on Saturday, well, there's that weather front still in the east, giving us cloud and outbreaks of rain, but in western areas we do the best. Lovely blue skies in some areas, temperatures 8 or 9, and with light winds, not feeling too bad. On Sunday, it stays largely dry for many of us, but fairly cloudy in the south.
TUI Blue Hotels. Sponsor STV Weather.
Finally tonight, it's the story that shocked the nation. Brandon Lee was a Bearsden Academy pupil who claimed he was 17 but was actually in his 30s.
Yes, and the real-life Peter Pan tale has now been made into a documentary starring Alan Cumming. Well, Laura Boyne joined the actor to find out more about the extraordinary tale behind My Old School ahead of its UK premiere at the Glasgow Film Festival tonight.
On the programme tonight, the back-to-school Peter Pan. Authorities tell how an adult got away with playing a teenager.
Kept himself to himself.
Never actually suspected anything that he was 32, didn't we?
Canadian Brandon Lee joined Class 5C at Bearsden Academy back in 1993. Except he was actually 30-year-old Scott Brian McKinnon, the man who fooled teachers and pupils into thinking he was far younger than he was.
I was extremely astonished and more than a little bemused.
It sounds like the plot of a film, and now it is, with Alan Cumming playing the lead role with a twist.
I remember she said, sometimes Brandon teaches me biology.
He did an interview for the film but didn't want to be seen, so an audio interview. So, Jono, the director, had a sort of dilemma about how to feature him. So I got all the tapes of his interviews and practiced them, like a drag queen, lip syncing. And now it's so funny because now at my bar, I have a bar in New York called Club Cumming. When there's drag queens there, I'm like, you better get this right because I lip synced an entire film, baby.
Lulu also features in this film, playing an animated teacher and singing the theme tune.
I know the story. The story is fascinating. I mean, it's absolutely you couldn't make it up. I want to do a bit more acting, and I definitely want to try, to do acting and acting with a Scottish accent. But he told me that Alan Cumming was playing Brandon. Well, I can hardly speak. I love Alan.
Really, what the film is about the class of his classmates who are all interviewed now, talking about their memories of it. And that, to me, is actually the legacy he's left, rather than the actual story of what happened.
I remember looking at him and thinking, oh, he looked like a man.
Another of Brandon's classmates was the director, Jono McLeod.
What we don't do in the film is tie everything up in a bow. It's up to the audience to decide really what they make of Brandon, what they make of us, I suppose.
I think it's opened my eyes hearing about other people's experience, and I think he had maybe a much bigger impact at the time into various people's lives than I would have ever thought.
I kind of think he's smart, but I also think he's maybe deluded, but not a bad soul.
What do you think of him now, Brandon Lee?
I've never met him. I have had quite a long connection with him, but I just hope he's happy. I hope he finds peace, because I think that's what he was looking for.
Such a fascinating story. You can understand how he got away with it, though. I don't look a day older than when I left school, Sophie.
OK, in your dreams, Gordon, in your dreams. That's it from us. We're back again tomorrow. See you then.
Good night.